That's, otherwise,
Must be looking tired about now.
Yeah. We were talking about Benson with Robert Guillaume. You directed 2 full seasons of that, didn't you?
Yeah.
Were you the only director?
Yeah.
Fantastic. And you were also the executive producer.
I was one of them. It was Paul Witt and Tony Thomas with the others. Yeah.
How did you handle the burden of all that work? What was your schedule like?
It was not that difficult. I mean, it's, Paul and Tony did most of the business. I got the executive producer credit because I guess I'd had it before, and it made me some more money. And I had a piece of the show, too, which by that time I was getting wise again.
The depression
kicked in.
was coming up, kicking in. What did you think of Guillaume? I mean, what kind of a person was he?
Well, I think I told you, I thought he had a terrible burden on it.
Yeah, that's right.
He became the poster boy for everybody who was black, and it was very tough on him.
Yeah.
But he was very talented. I liked his work, and we got along.
I sadly saw him recently at an Academy screening,
Yes,
and he was on his crutches because he had a stroke.
I know that. But he recovered, didn't he? Didn't he do Sports Night?
He's not in good shape.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was very sad.
He's very good on Sports Night. That's a wonderful show.
Yeah.
One of the few shows that I can tolerate these days.
Yeah. Let's talk about the pilot of Newhart. How did that come about?
Well, that was great fun because, I don't know, who's my agent?
This was 1982.
1982. I
Probably your
guess-
own agent, weren't you?
No, not at that time. This was Leonard Hanser, my agent, Major Talent.
Major talent.
Yeah. They're very sharp, and they just called for my services, and it was a walk in the park. I mean, Barry Kemp was the producer. It was an excellent script. Newhart was, he's wonderful. And when you think of my shows, it used to be a show and a half. With Newhart, the way he talked, it was like 1/3 of a show would be a whole show, because he was slow and deliberate. And I remember doing the pilot. I turned to Doug Smart, my assistant, who was with me. I said, "You feel like you're stealing the money here?" I said, "Look at the pace of this thing. We're just sitting there, enjoying it." Well, Newhart was a marvelous, and I had Tom Poston on there too. It was great fun.
Who spoke slowly too.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing was. And I cast Mary Fran, that I just understand she just died recently.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a shocker.
Suddenly, yeah.
I don't understand that. She was very young.
What was the concept? I mean, what was the format of the series? Just so we know for the record here.
Well, the format of he opened a bed and breakfast, an inn in New Hampshire, and what else could I tell you? It had been purchased. He had been a writer in New York, and he decided he wanted to go up with his wife to open this inn, and he had his first customer, and the place hadn't been used in several hundred years apparently, and so a young couple came in to rent a room, and they said, "How much is that going to be?" He said, "Well, I don't know exactly," and he looked it up. He said, "Room 102, that'll be a farthing." It was a lovely joke. I mean, it's quiet humor. I'll tell you what was interesting about that. We sent a crew back to shoot the exterior, to shoot something that would give us main titles. And what they brought back was garbage, and it was just awful. Couldn't use it, so I said, "Look, let me put together a temporary opening. We'll replace it later, because we needed to show something." So I sent out a call to the editing. I said, "Give me anything with New England in it, So they came back with a lot of outtakes from On Golden Pond, and there was stuff that was never in the film. But there was an image of a car driving up, and I said, I could make a sequence out of this. I picked up the car, and when I finished, I had just about 2 frames. I finished within 2 full frames. That's all the film there was. And I said, and we had Henry Mancini's music through the title.
Did you guide him along on
Well,
what you wanted?
guide Henry Mancini.
No,
listen.
I mean, did you tell him what the?
Well, yeah, it was
the
New
tone
England,
of it?
but it says New England Inn.
Yeah.
And then I showed him some of this footage that I grabbed from On Golden Pond outtakes, and with leaves and New England, and it looked like a journey going up. And the only shot I used was somebody shot a shot of the inn itself with a sign out front. And it was supposed to be temporary, but we kept it for the life of the series. It stayed. That little piece of stuff that I made out of nothing,
And it took you an afternoon to put it together, probably.
No, it took more than that.
Did it?
It was difficult to put together.
It was.
I had to think about it a lot because you're working with scraps. I was working with scraps of film, but sometimes good things will happen
Works out.
if you think about it long enough.
Had you worked with Bob Newhart before, John?
Never.
Uh-huh.
No, he was terrific.
What was your first meeting with him like?
Very pleasant. He smoked too much. That's all I thought. He was an inveterate smoker, and I used to be a heavy cigar smoker. In fact, during the years of All in the Family, at CBS, let me think a minute. Yeah, the TD technical director was on my right, so I would snap for cameras like this, and I always had a big Churchill-sized cigar in my hand, which was held over here while I was snapping. And I was not aware that Bob Lehendro, who's one of the world's greatest associate directors, was suffering. I didn't know that he was. He came to me in the third year, and he said, "Could I talk to you?" Very diffident. I said, "Yeah, what about?" He said, "I assume you'll want me back next year." I said, "Are you kidding? You're the best. Of course I want you back." He said, "Well, it's something I've been loath to tell you, but I'd like to ask you." I said, "You know that cigar that you hold? Sometimes it's under my face, and the smoke drifts up, and I can't see the screen, and it makes me cry." I said, "My God, Bob, it took you this long to tell me this? This is dreadful." He said, "You mean you'll stop?" I said, "No, you're fired." And then he looked at me. I said, "I'm kidding. Of course I'll stop." I had no idea. So I stopped smoking in the control room. And after a while, it became every place. I gave up cigars 10 years ago. Best thing I ever did, giving them up.
Well, now, you did the pilot of Newhart.
Yes.
Did you do any of the episodes?
Not one.
Why?
What for? I mean, that's enough. I had other things to do. What else was I doing then?
Well, you had your own company.
I had my own
and
company,
And
yeah.
you were developing the MacGyver series. I know
Exactly.
that, yeah.
And Mr. Sunshine, one of my all-time favorite shows.
Talk about that.
Well, it was just great. I mean, it was Jeffrey Tambor played the lead.
Brilliant.
And what a great actor. And when he first came in to read, I looked at him, and he was bald, and he had he looked like a rabbi, full black beard. And I thought, why is this guy even taking my time? This is terrible. He's not going to get the part. And then he read. Oh, boy. I thought, why not? He was brilliant. Well, my partner in this thing was Henry Winkler. And
From Happy Days.
Happy Days. And we had the same Leonard Hanser was our mutual agent, and we each had commitments with networks to put together shows, so it became a synergistic package. Henry was supposed to learn how to be a producer, and I must say he had some difficulty. He was a fine actor, but he was always running for office. He'd like to shake hands with everybody. It drove me crazy. And we had a deal when we were doing MacGyver and Mr. Sunshine at the same time. I said, "Henry, you do the original vetting of characters so that I can see them at lunch. Instead of seeing 10 actors for a role, you get it down to 2 or 3. So in the morning, he came on the set one day and he said, "I've got a great guy for this role that was supposed to be on Mr. Sunshine." I said, "I'm delighted." Again, going back to what I said about acting before, we always want the best actor very quickly. I said, "That's fine, because I don't want to waste my time at lunch." And he raved about this actor. I said, "That's fine." So I got to lunch, and he brought this guy in. And instantly, there was no way. This guy's not going to do it. And he, out of courtesy, I let him read. And then he left. And Henry said, "Isn't he great?" I said, "Henry, he's a very good actor. But didn't you notice something about him that would make sure that he cannot do the role?" He said, "What was that?" I said, "He's bald and he's got a full rabbinical beard. How do you put him down? He'll be like the freaking Smith brothers on the cough drop box, remember? Trade and Mark, remember those? Never mind.
No, I remember.
But he looked stunned. I said, "Well, it's one of the first things you learn about casting. And it's got nothing to do with the actor. The actor happened to be very good. Henry had forgotten who he was playing against, or who the actor was supposed to play against. So he can't do the role." One of the lessons I taught him.
But Jeffrey Tambor was bald and had
Yes, but this was a character playing against him.
Oh.
It was supposed to be
I
somebody
see.
else, you know.
I
No,
see.
Jeffrey would had it. I'm not going to cast another bald-headed, fully bearded man. And Henry hadn't seen that. He just ran into the acting was good. I said, "Oh, okay." No, you don't do that.
So did you get a commitment for both pilots then?
Same time.
Yeah. Who wrote Mr. Sunshine for you?
David Lloyd,
Oh,
the brilliant David Lloyd.
how lucky. How'd you get him?
Just offered it to him, and he came back and he
From your old
liked-
friendship with him.
I didn't have an old friendship with him. I don't
I
think.
thought maybe you had worked with him on one of the shows where he was the writer.
I don't think so.
Oh.
No, I think we just called him and had him in for a meeting. Liked him. Oh, what a clever man he is. He was just brilliant. He had an operation, I think a prostate or something like that. And he was being wheeled into the operating room, and they had the band on, and the nurse checked his. She said, "Is your name David Lloyd?" You know, being very careful, reading. And he said, "Yes, it is." She said, "Is that spelled with 2 L's?" He said, "Yes, but I'm here to have one of them removed." Now, that's pretty good gallows humor.
That is. That is. That is.
He's very clever.
Who
he
wrote
was great.
MacGyver?
MacGyver was written by somebody who wanted to remain anonymous, and his name begins with a Z. Why am I having trouble with that?
It'll come to you.
Probably not.
Now, did you make the Mr. Sunshine pilot first?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
And did the network tell you immediately that they wanted to put it on the air?
Yeah, they did, and then they got very nervous about it because it was on for something like 13 weeks. Then because he was blind, we were breaking new barriers, you know, and they decided it made them too nervous. Even though the ratings were in the 30s, can you imagine getting a 30 share and getting kicked off the air?
Today?
Well, today, you know, if you're a 15, you're a
Yeah.
major league hit. No, they took it off rather quickly.
Did you direct some of those episodes?
I did all of them.
Oh, you did?
Of Mr. Sunshine?
Yeah.
I did all of those.
Yeah.
Now, on MacGyver, I didn't direct any of them.
You did just the pilot?
I didn't do the pilot.
Oh, you didn't do the pilot?
No, it was directed by another man who wanted his name off it. It was fascinating. I had 2 guys, one who wrote, God, why can't I think of those names? And another who directed, and it was an hour and a half pilot, and it was delivered, and it was dreary, and really impossible. And Winkler and I were very depressed. We said, we have to show this to the network, and it's no good. And I asked this director, I said, and it was cut right to time. It was an hour and a half of dreadful. I said, is there anything you want to do with it? He says, no. He said, I like that. And that's what I want. And he left.
No wonder you've forgotten his name.
No, it's true, because but he wanted his name taken off, as a matter of fact. And we looked at it, and deep depression. I said, we have to show this to the network, even though we will not endorse it. So I showed it to ABC. I said, you know, I apologize for this cut, but I think if you will bear with us, there is a character in there, Richard Dean Anderson, who was a breakout hero. I think he'll be wonderful in this thing, but you have to let me cut it back to an hour. I got to take out a half hour of this slough. So we did, and they bought it. When I cut it, I spent a whole Easter holiday. My family was in the desert, and I stayed behind and cut, and got it down to where it was a very tight hour. And then the writer and the actor, and not the actor, he was great, the writer and the director both wanted their name taken off, and they came to the Directors Guild. Well, I'm sitting on the board, but I had to absent myself from the argument. And I had invented the name,
George Spelman?
not George Spelman, it came because of George Spelman. God, why am I blocking these names? It's getting tired. What the heck was the name, the pseudonym we have on the Directors Guild?
Oh, the one that...
Isn't that awful? Alan Smithy.
Oh, Alan Smithy, of
I
course.
sat on the board when the
And
idea...
Esterhaas made a movie. Or...
Yeah, which has destroyed the whole value of Alan Smithy as a pseudonym. I sat on the board where directors were asking if they could get their names into a pseudonym, and we said, let's have one pseudonym that everybody will know is something that the director doesn't like. And somebody said, how about James Smith? Or somebody said, no, Smith is a name that, how they're going to be a Smith. How about Smith with an E? Smith was a Y. I said, no, there's Jack Smythe, there's a Smythe, I know that S-M-Y-T-H-E. And then I said, why don't we make it 2 E's? I said, I've never heard of that. And they said, yeah, that's a good idea. Alan Smithy became the vote, and it passed. And these 2 guys, no, not 2. The writer was a whole different thing. He got his pseudonym from the Writers Guild, but our director, I said, I have no objection as the producer. I said, now, I asked this guy, I said, are you giving up your residuals and your royalties as well? Oh, no, we're going to keep that. Both of them kept those, and both of them made fortunes. We were on the air 8 years. They made fortunes but they objected to the way I cut it because it wasn't their product. And they have a right to do that. I can't argue that. But it was to their benefit.
Had you
that
seen
we cut.
Anderson in something before that caught your eye?
What caught our eye, both Winkler and I had the same impression. We had seen a lot of guys that came in, what I used to call, remember back in the Western period I was talking about, guys with big belt buckles and He-Man stuff, and they're reading. This guy walked in, good build, athletic looking, very good looking man. And he said, "Do you mind if I wear my glasses? I can't read too well without them." Whoa, that was wonderful. Both of us looked at each other. We said, a hero with some vulnerability is wonderful. That really, it almost sold himself right then, because he could do everything else. He's very athletic, and he never complained about any of the stuff that we had him do.
And there were a lot of stunts for him to
Oh,
do.
we had him up to his neck in water, and just all the time, buried under snow avalanches. And the one thing that I did that I really am proud of is that I said, I don't want this man ever to have a gun. He will solve every problem without the use of a firearm. And that became one of the reasons we had a rather low rating at some point, because the NRA was against us, the National Rifle Association. We were on their hit list. They didn't like us at all. I think we would have been a bigger hit. At the same time, we did something that was valuable, I think.
Did you get any objections from the network on that?
No, they went along with it.
Yeah.
But the show was marginal all the time. It kept getting. It was always on the tilt edge of being off, but it was the best thing that came after football, so they kept it. It was never a breakout, huge hit, the way it was in the rest of the world. That was the astounding thing. In America, it was okay, but in 95 countries, we are a smash still. Still.
They're still playing those episodes.
Oh, because they had very little dialogue. It was all action. We did great action stunts. It was very interesting.
You did the series with Paramount Television.
Paramount, yeah.
Yeah, they must have been ecstatic that it was playing all over the world so successfully.
According to their books, they'll never make the money back.
Right.
You know that.
We've heard that story.
Yeah.
Did you have a favorite episode of MacGyver at all that you recall?
One that my son wrote was he did a thing on a ship that was like a ship in limbo, with on the way to death.
A ghost ship?
A ghost ship, and a fantasy. MacGyver was lying ill and dreaming. It worked out very well. I enjoyed that. We did a lot of good episodes. I was proud of the series. I think it went very well. There was one. I had one time we used a gun, and this was kind of cute. We had him up on top of an atomic plant that was about to blow up. The usual countdown, 5, all that. He has disarmed the heavy, who had a revolver. MacGyver now left with a revolver, and he's got to tighten a valve. He needs a wrench rather than anything else to stop the atomic explosion. Countdown, 6, 5, 4. He takes the gun, and of course we had this fitted in advance, and he knocks out the barrel, and it becomes a wrench. And he tightens the thing. I love that. That was our use of a gun.
Terrific.
Yeah.
So, did you stay close to the series? the
Yeah,
whole
I
time?
did. We had a marvelous executive producer who went up to Canada when we went up there, and Downey. Am I blocking
was
his
it
name?
John Moranville?
No, Marambo was the assistant, the associate. Oh, Jesus, awful. Why can't I think of his first name?
What you'll think of it?
Downing. He was a deputy police chief in the city of Los Angeles before he became a writer. He started out on the Jack Webb stuff as an advisor.
Oh.
Decided he could write, and he was very good.
What was his last name? Do you remember that?
Downing,
Downing. Oh, yeah.
D-O-W-N-I-N-G.
Yeah.
But I'm blocking his first name.
Yeah, I am too.
Isn't that awful? Steve.
Steve Downing.
God,
There you
Steve
go.
Downing.
There you go.
It must be late in the day.
Yeah. Well, you've been here for a little while.
Yeah, because the mind is beginning to flow.
Yeah. You split up with Henry Winkler in '87.
Yeah.
Was that because you weren't being productive enough together?
Henry is a very nice man who didn't know, I think, about some of the basic rules. He would come on a set and talk to actors,
Oh.
and that used to enrage me. And I would say, Henry, you can't do that. Please don't do that. Why? The scene was wrong. He was doing it wrong. Speaking of the director. I said, how do you know what he was doing wrong? I said, unless you're there all day long, you can't tell. I said, I can't tell you how many times, if you walked on one of my sets and a scene would go on, you would say, what's the matter with Rich? He doesn't know what he's doing. But I was allowing the actors to flex a little bit and to try something. And I would say, hey, that's very good, but let's try something, and in the very good, you might hear that and say, wait a minute, very good, it's very bad. And indeed, it might be bad, but it doesn't mean I'm going to accept it. I'm on the way to something. So unless you are there all the time and are willing to take over from the director at this moment, you must not talk to actors because it confuses them. He said, well, when do you do it? When you think it's wrong? I said, you wait for dailies. And then you call the director and you say, I think you got this a little off. We can fix it. And if we can't fix it because we've left the location, we can edit. I said, but you cannot. And it's something that, Henry wanted to be loved by everybody. And he thought he was doing a good thing, and it was not a good thing. Henry had another thing that bothered me, frankly, and it's one of the things that I couldn't, I'm being terribly candid, and maybe that's unkind, but it's truthful. In casting sessions, when we were casting together, people would come in, and Henry would go into a paroxysm of delight and say what a brilliant reading that was. It was great, terrific, I loved it, and shake hands with the guy. And he would leave, and I said, Henry, did you really think that was a good reading? Mm-hmm. And he said, no, I didn't like it at all. I said, well, why did you say it was so good? He said, well, I wanted the actor to feel good. I said, well, how do you suppose that actor feels when he gets home and doesn't get the role? You know what he's going to say? Winkler loved me. He was that other son of a bitch that hated me.
Right.
I said, so it becomes my problem, doesn't it? I really wish you wouldn't do that. So it became difficult.
Just for 1 minute, because we're running a little out of time here, I want to touch on Murphy Brown. You directed some episodes there.
One episode, only because her husband, Louis Malle, the director, was on it playing himself, and Gary Marshall was playing the head of the network.
Did you want to meet Louis Malle? Was that in your mind?
No, they called me because they had two directors that were acting, and they needed a lion tamer, that could talk to two directors without getting swamped. Both of those guys were pretty high-powered individuals.
You bet.
And we had a lovely experience, and Louis died after that.
Right.
Not after that episode, but a year or two later.
It was a good episode.
I liked it very much.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I liked it very much.
Yeah, because
And Gary got a new career out of it. He became head of the network and stayed on as head of the network as an actor.
Yeah. Let's talk about your career. We've heard all the shows that you've directed and produced and executive produced. How have you been able to manage moving away from everything that you did before and move into the area you are now? I know you're still working, but kind of, do you look back? Are you the kind of person who looks back on the old days as being fonder than what's happening now?
Without question. Of course I was fonder. It was a much more sensible time. We didn't have all that assistance that we don't need.
What don't you like about what's going on now?
I don't like the fact that you have a cadre of studio executives who give you notes, and the actor and you have a cadre of network executives who give you notes.
Non-experienced.
All non-experienced. Not one that is a showman that I can say. And you have inexperienced writers who are terrified, and they take the notes. And if these writers knew enough to say, no, I will not take that note, they say, well, they're going to fire me. Well, that's the risk you take. It was just like going back to Lear and myself saying, we're not going to show up. Sometimes you have to be very positive and say, I'm not going to do this. Take a risk. Sometimes you may hit it right. Sometimes you're going to get fired.
I don't think that kind of courage exists.
No, it doesn't. And a lot of these young producers particularly, do exactly what they're told, and it's a mistake. Because the network, being in on every other show that's around, causes a kind of homogenizing effect to go on, because you get the same note from the young and experienced executive. And I'm not knocking Young. Young is very good. I'm not one of these guys that are better with age. It doesn't necessarily be. There are very bright people who are young, but I wish they had some experience other than being an MBA. They really ought to be in our business. They're not in our business.
We talked about shows that you watched, Frasier.
Yeah.
And you had watched some of Seinfeld. Is there anything?
A lot of Seinfeld. Seinfeld was very good.
Yeah. Is there anything today that you go out of the way to look at?
Give me a name. Well, Sports Night is very good.
Yeah.
I think that's very well done.
Everybody Loves Raymond.
No, I don't watch it.
I don't either.
I've seen an episode or two. I don't care for it. It's okay. I mean, it's not great. It's okay. Yeah, as shows go, it's one of the better ones, I suppose. There are some that I just find abhorrent. I can't look at them. I mean, they really disturb me
They're
because
mindless, aren't they?
that's the word.
Yeah.
It's cotton candy. I mean, it's or somebody once called it mind candy. You know, it's just awful stuff. I like Law and Order. I used to like NYPD Blue, not anymore.
I understand you played an acting role.
I did
on
my
Law and
first acting role on Law and Order because Ed Sheeran is my friend, who's the executive producer, asked me to play a judge
Order. Were you in New York at that
in
time?
New York, yeah. And I said, okay, I'll give you 2 days because that's what it was. And then they hired Julia Roberts. And of course, the schedule immediately changed to accommodate her, as it should.
How did they get her? Was she a friend of somebody on the show?
Yeah, Benjamin Britten was her boyfriend.
Oh,
And he's
Bratt.
Benjamin Bratt.
Bratt. Yeah.
Britten. That's an orchestra leader.
Composer.
Composer, yeah. Sorry.
That's all right.
Benjamin Bratt. Terrible name, but a very nice man.
I only remember it because I read the tabloids.
Yeah,
So-
and she did it, I think, and he was leaving, so it was kind of a farewell for both of them. But when she came on, my schedule stretched to 8 days, which I really didn't want, but okay. So now I got paid top of the show, which is what she got paid. So I'm fond of telling everybody that my fee is the same as Julia Roberts, $20 million a feature picture. You know,
I love it.
nobody has hired me yet to do that. But that was my first exposure as an actor. And I have never had so many comments, far more than everybody seemed to have watched that show because of Julia Roberts. And people say, hey, I saw you. The people are calling me judge, you know, and all over the place.
What do you think contributed to the great success you've had in your career? I mean, I have an idea,
Do you?
and I want to say that's guts.
Well, it's guts. Okay, I was going to say saran wrap, which is what Mel Brooks said when he was the 2,000-year-old man. You could wrap a nectarine in it. You could look through it. You could crumple it up. I don't know. You tell me what. You think it's guts?
I think it's guts.
Courage.
Yeah. Courage.
Yeah.
I mean, to stand up for what you believed in.
Yeah.
To not take any shit from
No,
anybody.
no. And I tell the truth. Now, telling the truth is not often that popular. But I would tell it, and people know, they know that about me, I guess.
Well, we
and,
live in a world of lies. You know that, John, and we'll discuss that at some point.
I can't do it. I tell the truth, and sometimes it costs me. I'm sure that people don't like to hear the truth. But I say, wait, come on. It's gotten me this far. You know, what the heck.
You're continuing your association with the Directors Guild of America?
Very
too?
much. I'm on the national board again this year. Just been reelected. I've been there since I was a kid.
What kind of advice would you give someone starting out as a television director?
Don't do it.
Why?
Get some other work, because I cannot conceive of starting out in this industry anymore, as a director particularly, in television. If you can write a feature and go do a feature, okay. I happen not to like feature work. I love television the way it was when it was live and exciting. You are under committee structure. You're under rewrite structure. You're under writer-producers. And why do they have that name, I don't know, because there are 1,200 producers who do not produce.
Yeah. Let's pick that up right in a moment
Okay,
while we change tapes.
okay.